Hey guys, welcome to Think Aside. Today I want to talk about something that we've kind of already talked about in a sense. We've talked about deflation, inflation, and how prices are going up and all that stuff. Um, but something I wanted to talk about specifically is something that I guess didn't really click for me until recently. I was watching an interview with someone and he had talked about it, and so I wanted to kind of explain it. Is that we see prices going up and we think it means that things cost more money, right? And in a sense it does. Like, it, of course, it takes more dollars to buy that thing, but it's not so much that the value of the thing is going up, it's that the value of our dollars are going down. And so, of course, when put that way, it makes perfect sense. Like, of course, right? We agree with that. Um, but then it got me thinking about electronics and how knowing that, for instance, uh, Jeff Booth, I think is his name, he had talked about in The Price of Tomorrow, he talks about how electronics, how technology or is the, it's a deflationary force, right? So it does the opposite of inflation. It literally deflates over time. So it's kind of going against inflation. And so you don't really see that. You don't see things in like electronics. Sometimes you do. You see them get cheaper over time. Like the newest thing is now more expensive, and the thing that was newer last year is cheaper than the year before, type of thing. But that happens in all fields in general. But something I didn't really click is that not only is that the case, but we noticed that the same, say the new iPhone every year is the same cost, right? The new Samsung Galaxy is the same cost every year. Excuse me. And the reason for that is, well, you wonder, like, okay, so if inflation is a thing and prices are going up, then why aren't those prices going up? Well, it's because exactly that. The price is able to stay the same because even though the dollar value loses value, right? It goes down, and so it takes more dollars in general to buy things. The phones technology in general, because it's deflationary, because it's so efficient, becomes more and more efficient, it ends up being cheaper to buy those things. And so even though it looks like it's staying the same price, it is becoming cheaper because inflation would make it cost more every year, but because it's deflationary, it ends up being cheaper. So that's something I wanted to bring up. I thought that was kind of interesting that we, I think we kind of just see it as well as the same price, and the things are going up in prices, but that's not quite what's happening. So knowing that that's the case, knowing that phones and technology in general are in fact getting cheaper, it made me wonder, that much more about a world that were to be completely deflationary, and how if there wasn't any inflation, if there wasn't a government who had the power of money and literally printed to their desire and benefited from it, if it was solely deflationary, meaning that things went down in price over time, I wonder, and meaning that specifically that dollars gain value over time as there's fewer and such. It made me wonder, like, just thinking about that much more, that how the phone, like, say the newest phone comes out this year, and it's, I don't know how much the new phones are, probably what, like 800, $1,000, something like that. And then next year it comes out, say it came out for 800 this year. Next year it comes out and it's 750. The newest and best phone, $750. And then the year after that it's 650. And then 600. And then the year after that 500, 450. And if we kind of followed that, I don't know if there would be like a kind of like an end to that. I don't know, what would be the kind of like the limit, if there would be a limit. I don't know who would set that limit. I don't know how that would work, but I guess that would kind of depend on the situation and such. But we see we could see phones being worth $10, the newest phone 10 years from now being worth $1. And that would be so crazy to me. Like, literally going to the store, having $1 and having it be worth a crazy amount of money. And then having that dollar, because not only is a dollar worth a crazy amount of money, but and I say crazy amount of money, it's more the value that's now worth so much. And then beyond that, you have the technology that, because it's a deflationary force, being so efficient to make that it's just cheap, right? And so it ends up being so cheap to make that you can buy it for a dollar. And then eventually, just like Jeff Booth says about like apps on your phone and how like calculators and things like that, you had to buy them. But nowadays, you can pretty much just download an app on your phone for free and you have it. Imagine it being the same thing. Like, what if there's a day that comes in a deflationary world where they pretty much give away your phone, right? Or give away a phone to you, rather, because it's so cheap to make that like everyone's just making phones and or whatever the newest thing is, a watch or a smartwatch or a HoloLens or the eyes, the goggles, all of that stuff. What if it's so cheap that you can just get it like without even really even trying to budget for it? And that's kind of like a refrigerator or a stove. Like there's quite a few things now, as Robert Breedlove has argued before. Like we're richer now than we have ever been because of technology. And you look at how cheap things like a stove, refrigerator, things like that. Yeah, they still cost money, but in general, everyone, generally speaking, at least in the US, has one, right? Anyone with a house tends to have those things. If you rent somewhere, you have to have those things. So you think about that, and then you think about like how convenient those things are. Think about like the goggles and all of these things that could potentially be just effectively given to us because they're just so cheap to make. And then of course it makes me think about how in that world, knowing that something might only be a dollar, just think about like pennies, right? So a penny could be worth like the $10 or the $50, whatever it is that it is now. And then it'd be closer to like where, and I'm going to bring up Bitcoin again here, is you look at how with Bitcoin, a lot of people suspect that over time, because there will be fewer and fewer Bitcoins, you'll have the Satoshis come in, right? And the Satoshis, and part of this as well, because Bitcoin will be worth so much money that it won't be ideal to give a Bitcoin or to even give a fraction of a Bitcoin, because a fraction will be still so much. And so you tie Satoshis to it, which will be kind of like the cents, the pennies. And just imagine that, right? Like it kind of puts in perspective how that could work, is being that you might hold like 100 Satoshis and it'd be worth 1/100th of a Bitcoin, or 1/1000th, or a millionth, whatever it is. And it's kind of crazy to think that in a deflationary world, how valued our money, I was gonna say our monetary value, but our money couldn't be, and how beneficial that can be, that we can make a dollar and then tomorrow it'd be worth $2, and then the next day worth $3, $4, $5. How we can literally trade our time for our future instead of trade our time for the present only, right? Because we have to trade our time for the present, what it's worth now, and then we have to hurry up and spend it, put it into something else before it loses value and our time was all for naught or close to it. Versus in a deflationary world, it wouldn't be like that, right? We'd be able to trade our time for money, but then that money would gain value. So it'd be like our time that we spent would be worth more tomorrow by spending it now versus waiting to spend it later. So it's just kind of a weird thing to me anyway, that we would literally, we would kind of change our perspective on how things would be. We wouldn't feel the need to hurry up and spend our money. We wouldn't feel the need to not save and to kind of, I don't know, be frivolous with our money and our goals, right? Because of course, I argue that with inflation and with the mindset that it kind of instills with a lot of our goals and the way that we handle our money, it also impacts our life in a lot of different ways, our decision making in other aspects. Because when we get used to spending our money and just kind of realizing that we need to hurry up and spend it because it's losing value, and we don't really think of it that way. I think we more see it as prices are going to go up tomorrow if we don't buy it today. And so there's times where we wait for sales and things like that, but depending on what it is, we very much want to buy it today. Look at groceries and gas, things like that. And so I think knowing that that's the case, I think that there's a inherent problem that comes with inflation and that mindset of spending money and such, is that we start to think about other aspects of life the same way. We start to be a little more impulsive. We start to worry less about how it's going to impact our future, and we might even have a more negative mindset on, how things are going to play out, knowing that things are kind of how they are economically wise. And so I think it's important to kind of separate the two, and realize that though we might have to spend our cash now in order to preserve our time. And when I say spend, I mean transition it into something else, right? You put it into something that holds value, is the idea behind it, and buy the things that you need, of course. So I think it's important to be aware of that, so we don't become more impulsive in other aspects of our life, so we don't start to make poor decisions in multiple aspects. And so that might just be more perspective. It might not be truth. I think a lot of what we say here, and what is said in general, a lot of the things we know to be facts are more of perspective. So I think that's interesting that we very well could be kind of feeding, from an economic standpoint, feeding a lot of the inherent issues we have in our society, whether it's economical, or money management, or even moral, right? People taking the easy route out, knowing that well, I'm not going to worry too much about tomorrow. I need to hurry up and make a decision now, today, because my time is losing value, right? Our life, in a sense, of our time is losing value, being that we trade our time for money, and our money is trading or losing value. Then in a way our life too is losing value. And if our life is losing value, of course we want to enjoy it as much as possible now, right? We want to keep it as valuable as possible. That's kind of stretching, of course, but it's kind of an interesting thought. It's a line of thought that I thought you guys might enjoy at least hearing play out a little bit. And of course, you can be elaborated upon more, but I think this video is kind of separate from that. But yeah, so I just want to leave that with you guys. I do appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great day, and that the sun is shining as greatly and fantastically as it is out here. Thanks. Thank you, side.